Life in the Garden of Eden. Imagine a place unlike any other. A garden so peaceful, so full of quiet beauty, where everything felt just right. This was the Garden of Eden, a special home made with care in the very beginning. It was a gentle paradise, a place where life was fresh and new. The ground was soft with grass and flowers. Tall trees stood all around, their leaves whispering softly in the warm breeze. There were trees heavy with fruit, some sweet and colorful, others shining and bright. Among these, two trees stood quietly, a little apart from the rest. Their names would become very important later, but for now, they just stood peacefully in the garden. Every morning, a gentle light filled the sky, coloring the clouds with soft pinks and golds. The air smelled fresh, like after a light rain over wildflowers. Little animals moved quietly among the trees, birds chirping softly, rabbits hopping through the underbrush, and gentle deer nibbling on green leaves. They all seemed to live together without fear or hurry, as if the whole garden breathed with calm and kindness. In this beautiful place God formed a man named Adam. He was made from the earth itself, shaped with care and given life with a warm, gentle breath. Adam woke to a new world filled with wonder. He was not alone, for God had a plan. God saw that it was not good for Adam to be by himself. So from Adam, God made a companion, a woman named Eve. She was made with the same tenderness and care, a friend to walk beside him in the garden, to share the joys of this new life. Adam and Eve woke each day surrounded by beauty. They walked hand in hand through the garden's paths, feeling the soft grass beneath their feet. They listened to the songs of the birds and watched the colorful butterflies dance in the sunlight. The trees gave them shade, and the rivers murmured quietly nearby. Every day, Adam and Eve learned about the plants and the animals. God gave them a gentle task, to take care of the garden and keep it safe. They were free to eat from all the trees, enjoying the fruit and the sweetness that grew naturally around them. But God also gave them one quiet rule, spoken softly and with care. They were told to be careful of one tree in the middle of the garden. This special tree was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God said they must not eat its fruit, because the time to understand everything about right and wrong was not yet ready for them. Adam and Eve lived with this gentle instruction, feeling the peace of the garden and the calm trust between them and their Creator. Each day was simple and full of small joys, a kind breeze, the laughter of a stream, the touch of soft leaves. Outside the garden, the world stretched beyond sight, but inside there was only this deep quiet and beauty. Sometimes maybe Adam and Eve would wonder about the trees and the animals, the sky's endless blue, and the warmth of the sun, but they were content to be here, in this safe and tender place. God would walk with them in the cool of the day, a quiet presence like the softest shadow, a friend who cared deeply. The evenings were painted with gentle colors, and the stars blinked sleepily above. Adam and Eve would rest, feeling safe and loved. The animals, too, were gentle in the garden. Lions and lambs rested side by side. Birds built nests in the tallest branches. Everything seemed to live in perfect balance, without fear or hunger. The garden was a gift of peace. There was an innocence here, a trust that today and tomorrow would bring only kindness. Time felt slow, like the gentle flow of a quiet river, with no rush, no worry. And so the days passed softly in the Garden of Eden. The story we are telling is filled with calm and gentle moments, a story of a perfect beginning, a fresh start, in a world that waited quietly for what was to come. We do not know everything about those days, for the story is old, and some parts remain a quiet mystery. But we hold the image of that garden, a place of peace, where life began with care and gentle love. Now imagine Adam and Eve walking through the garden once more, the soft ground beneath their feet, the sun warming their skin, and the quiet rustle of the trees all around. The garden is alive with a gentle calmness, a place where every sound is a soft lullaby. And as they move through the paths, they carry with them the hope of a new world, tender and full of promise. The story continues, softly unfolding like the petals of a flower, waiting to be heard with kindness and care. For now, rest with the thought of the Garden of Eden, where life began in the softest light. As the days passed in the garden's embrace, the rhythm of life settled into a serene pattern. Morning light filtered softly through leaves, tracing delicate patterns on the dew-kissed grass. The air carried a sweet perfume of blooming flowers and ripe fruit, mingling naturally with the gentle chorus of birdsong. These mornings were not rushed. They awakened slowly under a sky brushed with pale gold, inviting Adam and Eve to rise gently, as if the earth itself whispered a quiet welcome. Adam would stretch beneath the boughs of a fig tree, feeling the sun's warmth settle tenderly on his skin. Eve, awakened by the rustle of soft wings, would often greet him with a smile that seemed to dance like light through the branches. Together, they shared moments of silent gratitude, words unnecessary for the language of their hearts spoke freely in looks and quiet presence. Their feet learned the texture of the earth, soft soil, smooth stones, woven grasses tangled with tiny blossoms. The garden was alive beneath them. In their careful steps, a solemn respect bloomed. To tread lightly was to honor the richness of the place given to them, a sacred trust whispered by every leaf and every spring. Each day their hands reached out to nurture, to gather, to admire. Adam learned the stories traced in tree rings and the delicate architecture of flowers. Eve listened to the rustling of the wind, as if the garden spoke in hidden verses only she could hear. The animals, too, seemed to know their hearts. A deer would approach, tentative and curious, while birds alighted near their shoulders, without fear, sharing the quietness of existence. They learned the names given by God, names not only spoken but felt, like a gentle melody connecting each living creature. The lion, the elephant, the tiny hummingbird, each held a place not of dominance, but of gentle dignity. In the harmony of these relationships, Adam and Eve understood something profound, a balance so tender it barely stirred the air. Gardening became their daily celebration, the trees heavy with fruit, the sweet herbs growing beside murmuring streams, the soft moss carpeting shaded nooks. They tended all with a mindful attentiveness, coaxing life to thrive with gentle hands. The work was never toil but a dance shared, a dialogue between the earth and their growing hearts. Listen deeply to the stories in the wind, to the silent wisdom etched in stone. He found pleasure in the quiet strength of the mountain nearby, which sheltered the garden like a steady sentinel. He watched streams twist and turn, carving life-giving paths through the earth, and felt a steady current of gratitude flow through him. Their evenings were gentle, too. As sunlight melted into twilight, the garden was bathed in a soft, glowing hush. The sky unfolded in shades of pink and lavender, stars appearing like distant fires in the vastness above. Adam and Eve would sit beneath the vast expanse, sometimes in silence, sometimes speaking softly of things they barely understood, but felt deeply. It was in these moments that the mystery of existence felt closest, neither heavy nor frightening, but a quiet invitation to wonder. They felt the presence of God not as a judgment, but as a patient friend offering a hand to hold in the soft dark. In this time the garden was a sanctuary of innocence, a cradle of beginnings where hope blossomed freely. The animals nestled together as if cradled by the earth's own heart, and the gentle whisper of the wind spoke of peace without end. Yet beneath this calm surface there was a subtle hum, an unspoken unfolding, like the first faint notes of a song yet to be sung. It suggested the promise of growth, the possibility of change, and the tender risk embedded in trust. Adam and Eve carried this with them as they moved through the garden's contours. Every step was a pledge to live in harmony with creation and with each other. Every breath was a quiet thankfulness for the gift of life and the beauty that filled their world. Sometimes, when the garden seemed especially still, they would pause and look deeply into each other's eyes. They saw there not only companionship but the unfolding of something new, an endless horizon of possibility, where love could grow as naturally as the flowers around them. The story of their days in the garden is not one of great events or loud declarations, but of gentle moments woven together, a mosaic of peace and belonging. It is a story wrapped in the quiet comfort of trust and the soft touch of hope, a story that lingers like the last light of dusk, full of promise. And so, as the garden breathes with the rhythm of life, Adam and Eve continue their walk. Their hearts beat quietly in the tender unfolding of time, carrying the blessing of a beginning that holds within it the seeds of all that is yet to come. In the cool of the evening, they rest beneath the vast sky, cradled by the land and bathed in starlight. The world is wide and waiting, but here, in this sacred place, all is safe and whole. The garden smiles around them, a gentle guardian of their innocence and their dreams. In this perfect beginning, life flows like a soft river, steady, kind, and filled with a light that quiets the soul. Here in the Garden of Eden, the story whispers on. In the soft hush of dawn, the garden awoke with gentle sighs. Light wove delicately through the leaves, casting a tapestry of emerald and gold upon the earth. Birds called softly, and the quiet murmur of the creek whispered secrets only the attentive could hear. Adam and Eve, wrapped in the stillness, moved with graceful ease, feeling the rhythm of life in their veins. They wandered beneath the arching boughs where dew hung like silver beads. Eve knelt by a patch of wildflowers, tracing the intricate patterns on a single petal, marveling at its perfect symmetry. She felt the pulse of creation in that fragile softness, and was filled with reverence. The tiny blooms bent willingly under her gentle touch, as if sharing a silent bond. There was nothing rushed or harsh here, only the serene unfolding of each moment. Adam stood nearby, the morning light highlighting the strength in his shoulders and the quiet steadiness in his gaze. He watched a family of deer step lightly from the shadows, their movements smooth as waves on a tranquil sea. The mountain beyond welcomed the dawn with a steady glow, its crystalline peaks piercing the sky. To Adam, the mountain was a steadfast companion, a guardian watching over the garden's tender heart. Together they walked toward the tree of life, its branches heavy with fruit that shimmered softly, bathed in the tender embrace of morning mist. It was not fear that drew them near, but a calm respect. This tree was a symbol of hope itself, endless renewal, whispered promise of existence unbroken and whole. Eve reached out but did not grasp. Instead, her fingertips brushed the leaves, smooth and warm, as if exchanging a quiet vow. She recalled the deal made in silence between them and the world, to nurture and protect, to be humble and patient. They did not need to taste the fruit to understand its meaning. In fact, the unspoken trust was perhaps the most profound nourishment. As the sun climbed higher, a soft breeze stirred the air, carrying with it sense of earth and rain to come. The garden seemed to breathe alongside them, a living, sentient sanctuary that invited tenderness. Every blade of grass, every fluttering wing, every twinkle of morning dew spoke a language older than words, a language of belonging. Adam knelt at the creek's edge, cupping cool water to sip. The liquid felt alive, refreshing beyond mere thirst. He watched tiny fish dart beneath the surface, their silver bodies dancing in shafts of sunlight. The water sang quietly over smooth stones, a song of ceaseless flow. It reminded Adam of time, steady, gentle, carrying life onward without hurry or fear. Eve came to his side, leaning their shoulder lightly against his. They sat in companionable silence, the only sound their own breathing mingled with the creek's murmur. It was a sacred space, this quiet union between two souls and all that surrounded them. Later they roamed to the edge of the garden, where wild grasses swayed, brushing against each other like whispered secrets. Overhead, butterflies wove delicate patterns through the air, their wings gilded by sunlight fragility. Eve followed one as it floated lazily, marveling at the softness of its flight, the precision of its movements. The garden was a masterpiece composed in countless small miracles, the delicate, the enduring, the beautiful hidden in plain sight. Adam, ever the watcher, noted how the animals gathered without fear. They mingled beneath the trees, sharing water and shade, their presence a quiet testament to harmony yet to be fully understood. Even the smallest creatures played a vital role, each part woven into the intricate tapestry as needed and cherished. As afternoon faded toward evening, the sky softened into hues of rose and lavender. Shadows stretched slow and long, threading through the branches with tender care. Adam and Eve returned to their resting place beneath a tree whose roots curled like welcoming hands around the earth. They sat close, shoulders touching, hearts beating in quiet sync. Eve spoke first, her voice a gentle murmur blending with the twilight. She wondered aloud about the future, about the life they were growing into. Slowly, carefully, like the turning of seasons. Adam nodded, understanding her unspoken questions, sharing the hope that threaded through their days like golden light. Nothing was hurried here. Trust was their guide. In these moments neither hunger nor fear stirred. Only peace filled the spaces between thoughts. They knew the garden would hold them, cradle them through every unfolding chapter. It was a place of beginnings, yes, but also of infinite stillness, a sanctuary where the seed of all things might quietly take root before the world itself stirred. Stars began to appear, soft points of silver shimmer against a velvety night. The moon, pale and serene, lent its light without intrusion. Under this gentle canopy, Adam rested his hand in Eve's, not needing to speak. The silence was full, a language beyond words. Close by, a small family of foxes nestled in the underbrush, their breaths slow and even. Somewhere far off, an owl called once, a sound like a secret shared only with the dark. The garden stayed awake with life, a tender guardian of innocence and hope. As they lay beneath the stars, wrapped in the garden's quiet promise, Adam and Eve carried within them a serene faith. It was a faith not born of certainty but of patient waiting, of knowing that growth happens softly, beneath the surface, in time measured by love and trust rather than fear or haste. This was the garden's true gift, the freedom to become, to unfold, to be cradled by grace. And here in the hush of night, where every living thing breathed the same gentle breath, life whispered its oldest truth. All beginnings are silent, but they hold within them the whole vastness of promise. Even as the moon traced silver ribbons across the sky, the garden hummed softly with life's gentle rhythms. Adam and Eve lingered beneath the tree's wide branches. Their bodies rested against the rough, tender bark, hearts attuned to the subtle movements of their sanctuary. The night breeze carried whispers, secrets of the earth spoken with a voice familiar and serene. Through the quiet, a breeze lifted a leaf, sending it swirling in a slow dance. Eve reached out a hand, and the leaf settled softly in her palm. Its veins glowed faintly, like tiny rivers beneath its fragile skin. She studied it with wonder, marveling at the tiny world held within waves of green, as if the leaf itself was a map of time's unfurling. Adam brushed a finger over the smooth surface of a nearby stone. The coolness grounded him, a reminder of the world beneath the garden's tender canopy. He imagined the slow shifting of shapes beneath them, the deep patience of stone formed through ages unseen. Time here felt different, a weaving more delicate and deliberate, holding the past gently, while inviting the future to unfold like a soft blossom. Nestled close together, they let their breath fall into the earth's silent song. The stars above nodded, constant, watching, patient. They sang of stories untold, long before thoughts or dreams. Now, under their steady gaze, Adam and Eve embraced the gift of simplicity, the profound depth of presence. As the first light of dawn painted the horizon with delicate hues, the garden stirred anew. Dew clung like tiny jewels to the grasses and petals, each one catching the light to sparkle briefly before the sun's warmth coaxed them to release their shimmering burden. The world felt tender and alive with possibility. Adam rose first, his feet touching the soft earth like a prayer. With careful steps, he wandered toward the creek, his reflection mingling with the quiet current. Water, the eternal traveler, traced its path through stone and root, an unbroken thread weaving life into every corner. Eve rose with the sun, her movements gentle and fluid. She gathered handfuls of moss and soft blossoms, weaving them into a simple crown, not a symbol of dominion, but a quiet celebration of belonging. The garden honored such gestures, rewarding small acts of gratitude with blooms and fragrances that seemed almost to sigh with contentment. Together they ventured deeper into the garden's embrace, following trails marked by the wind's gentle touch. Here a clearing opened, bathed in sunlight. Butterflies gathered, their wings painting fleeting tapestries. Eve reached out slowly, and one landed briefly on her finger, a moment suspended in tender stillness. Adam watched her, the quiet warmth in his chest growing like a slow flame. The garden was not just a place of refuge, it was a place of becoming, a sacred workshop where they could learn the ancient art of patience. Each moment here unfolded as a soft lesson, to listen more than to speak, to rest more than to rush, to trust more than to demand. The animals around them moved without fear. A deer paused at the edge of the clearing, lifting its head with gentle curiosity. A fox tiptoed nearby, its amber eyes meeting Adam's with quiet understanding. These creatures embodied harmony not through force, but through a shared rhythm, a weaving of lives that honored each thread without tearing or severing. Adam knelt on the soft grass, letting a blade brush his cheek. The sensation was a whisper against his skin, a reminder of the delicate balance holding the world in place. Eve joined him, their hands resting side by side on the earth, fingers almost touching, an unspoken promise mirrored by the garden's serene witness. As they rose, the sun climbed higher, casting a golden halo around everything it touched. The garden seemed to breathe, a slow, steady inhale and exhale, a pulse in sync with their own hearts. Here, in this living sanctuary, time was neither enemy nor ally, but a patient companion. They moved toward a grove, its ancient trees wide and towering, their leaves sculpting dapples of shade that flickered like gentle flames. Within this quiet realm, the light itself seemed to slow, settling into serene pools that invited stillness. Adam and Eve settled beneath the canopy's embrace. Eve touched the rough bark of a tree trunk, feeling the stories held within its rings. Stories not of conquest or command, but of endurance and delicate growth. Life here was a tender unfolding, a weaving not of power but of care. The day drifted by in soft moments, bird calls rising and falling like a song carried on the breeze, the subtle rustle of leaves as creatures went about their gentle business, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the cool shadowed earth beneath their feet, a symphony of whispers inviting quiet attention. Adam observed a small spider weaving its web, marveling not at its utility but at its artistry, the delicate patience in each precise thread. Eve smiled softly, inspired by the tiny architect's gentle craft, a reminder that creation was also an act of love. Night returned slowly, drawing a curtain of twilight over the garden's splendor. Stars shimmered with cool light, their distant fires echoing the steady calm within. The world felt hushed but alive, a sacred pause pregnant with possibility. Together, Adam and Eve lay side by side beneath the stars. Their hearts beat in soft rhythm, a shared mantra of trust and hope. Around them the garden held its breath, cradling them gently between earth and sky, past and future. In this place there were no rushing footsteps or scattered thoughts, only the quiet unfolding of beings learning to grow into their own light, to listen deeply to the silence, and to cherish the slow, sacred art of becoming. As they drifted toward sleep, the garden sang a lullaby, a secret song of roots and stars, of water and stone. And in the midst of that ancient melody, Adam and Eve felt the truth whispered softly, that life at its deepest is a patient journey, a breathing dance of trust, love, and quiet awakening. As dawn's first light brushed the horizon, a tender hush settled over the garden. Dew clung like fragile jewels to every leaf, and the air felt alive with delicate expectancy. Adam and Eve, still cradled in the quiet of night's embrace, rose slowly, their breath mingling softly with the cool morning mist. They wandered together toward the gentle rise where the sun, like a shy artist, began to color the sky in hues of apricot and rose. The garden stirred in response, petals unfolding as though stretching from a long, peaceful sleep. Each blossom seemed to breathe anew, their colors deeper, more radiant in the dawning hour. Eve reached out to caress a lily drinking in the light, her fingertips barely brushing its velvet softness. Feeling the pulse of the garden steady in his own chest, a subtle rhythm that invited his heart to listen rather than command. The day promised no urgency, no demand. It was an unfolding, a patient revelation in which moments stretched thoughtfully, each one a quiet gift, wrapped in the simple breath of living. Nearby, a small brook greeted the morning, its water murmuring secrets only the earth could understand. They knelt by its edge, letting their hands trail in the cool flow. The touch was immediate and grounding. The gentle pulse of the water stirred both their spirits. It whispered of movement, of change that is neither harsh nor sudden, but gentle and sure. Eve smiled, her eyes reflecting the shimmering ripples. She gathered a handful of pebbles smooth and warm from the brook's bed and traced their polished curves with reverence. She felt the slow crafting of the world beneath her fingers, the patient artistry that held both strength and grace. Adam bent close, releasing a leaf into the current. It floated serenely, winding slowly along the brook's gentle path as if guided by an unseen hand. No race, no hurry, simply the river's timeless journey onward. Together, they followed the stream in silence, the garden's song growing softer, but no less profound in this unspoken communion. As the sun climbed higher, shadows danced between the tree trunks, casting patterns of light and shade, a living mosaic where each fragment played its part. Adam paused to watch a pair of birds darting among the branches, their wings barely bending the air. Their movements were playful yet precise, spontaneous yet perfectly in tune with one another. Eve crouched beside a patch of wild thyme, inhaling the herb's faint scent like a grounding prayer. She felt the stitch of life beneath her fingertips, the tiny, unseen miracles that spring from unseen roots, from patience sustained. They spoke little, for words seemed too sharp, too hurried for this rhythm. Instead, they shared glances, small smiles that deepened into quiet understanding. Then, as if called by an unseen melody, their feet led them to a circle of softly glowing stones, warm from the morning sun. The space felt charged with a gentle energy, a sacred pause where the garden's heart seemed to pulse, closest to their own. Eve sat carefully on a stone, smoothing the moss beside her, as if arranging a living tapestry. Adam settled opposite her, their eyes meeting like two murmurs carried by the same breeze. Here, the garden's lullaby became a tangible presence, a tender thrum woven from bird calls, rustling leaves, the slow hum of life, unfolding at the speed of patience. Adam's fingers brushed a petal fallen from a nearby bloom. It was fragile, its edges curling like whispered promises. He lifted it gently, balancing it on the back of his hand as if afraid to break the quiet balance between them. Eve's gaze softened. "This garden doesn't rush," she said, voice low and reverent. "It teaches us to breathe slowly, to see the unfolding within each moment." Adam nodded, feeling the truth settle deep and warm in his being, to trust in what we cannot yet understand. They watched as a gentle breeze stirred the petals above, an unseen hand weaving new patterns of light and shadow across their faces. Time seemed to fold softly around their shared presence. Later, they rose and wandered deeper into the garden's embrace, stepping lightly over moss-covered paths that seemed to hum with a silent welcome. The scent of jasmine mingled with earth and distant rain, filling their lungs with a medicine of calm. They came upon a clearing where the grass bent gently under the touch of a wild breeze, creating waves of emerald undulation. Beside them, a great oak tree spread its mighty arms, leaves whispering stories too old for words. Eve rested against its trunk, grounding herself in its ancient strength. Adam took a slow breath, his hands pressing into the soft soil. In this living cathedral, he felt the pulse of time slow, the endless urgency of before and after, dissolving into now. Above, a pair of squirrels darted nimbly, chasing one another with joyful abandon. Their laughter, a shared cascade of chirps and rustling, reached Adam's ears like a delicate melody, a reminder that even the smallest creatures dance in the rhythm of the garden's patience. Eve smiled, watching the playful sparks ignite the clearing's quiet. "We are part of this dance," she whispered, "not masters of the tempo, but companions of its flow." The afternoon deepened in golden light, and they moved slowly, savoring every step as a prayer. The garden revealed tiny wonders, a snail's graceful path on a leaf, the shimmer of a dragonfly's wing, the secret pulse of roots reaching invisibly beneath their feet, all lessons written in the language of quiet, steadfast love. As dusk began to weave its shadows, the sky blooming with lavender and gentle pink, Adam and Eve found their way back to their resting place beneath the ancient trees. They sat close, sharing the warmth of a single shawl woven from soft fibers and the gentle energy of their shared day. The garden hummed softly around them, a lullaby woven from the night itself. Crickets sang their gentle chorus, and the first stars blinked open in the deepening velvet sky. Eve leaned her head on Adam's shoulder. "Life here," she said, voice like a soft sigh, "is not about changing the world with force, but about becoming part of its slow unfolding." Adam's hand found hers, their fingers entwined in quiet affirmation. "A journey of trust and love," he replied, "where we belong in the rhythm, not above it." Together they watched the stars emerge, constellations like silent witnesses to the garden's timeless promise. With each breath, their hearts learned the patient language of awakening, a sacred pause filled with hope and gentle understanding. And under the watchful eyes of the ancient trees, racked in the garden's embrace, they slowly surrendered to night's soothing song, knowing that life in its deepest truth grows quietly and tenderly, like a blossom unfolding toward the dawn. Night deepened softly around them, a slow velvet cloak woven from the garden's own breath. Crickets began their steady chorus, a gentle heartbeat beneath the canopy of stars. Adam and Eve lay side by side, limbs lightly touching, as the garden whispered its ancient lullaby, breathing in silent harmony with the softly pulsing earth beneath them. The cool night air carried a subtle fragrance, damp moss, sweet blossoms long closed for rest, and the faint grounding scent of rich soil. It was the earth exhaling after its day-long labor, a moment suspended between worlds, where time itself felt like a slow, flowing river. Eve turned her gaze skyward, tracing constellations she did not yet know by name, but recognized as old friends woven from light. Each star a point of stillness, distant yet intimately present, flickering softly like a lullaby sung in twinkling voices. Adam watched her quiet reverence, the way her eyes held wonder, as she took in this realm beyond their own. There was a deep calm in her presence, a quiet patience blossoming with each breath, in sync with the garden's gentle pulse. The garden, wrapped in its night melody, seemed to cradle them both, a sacred space where stillness grew heavy like ripe fruit, ready to be savored slowly. Without speaking, they shared a feeling that words could not capture, a sense of being exactly where they were meant to be. After a time, Eve reached out and brushed her hand along a nearby leaf, its surface cool and soft beneath her fingertips. She marveled quietly at how the smallest elements of life held entire stories within, the fine veins tracing delicate pathways, the faint shimmer of dew clinging like tiny jewels. Adam smiled, the kind of smile that carried quiet understanding. His fingers joined hers, weaving their hands together, two roots intertwining beneath the soil's surface, different, yet inseparable. Together they listened to the night's breath, the whisper of leaves, the occasional rustle far off as a gentle creature moved through the underbrush. These sounds, so subtle and gentle, were the garden's language, a slow and steady conversation spoken through time. It invited them into a kind of meditation where presence was all that mattered, and everything else softly faded into the background. Eve shifted to lean her head on Adam's shoulder. She felt his steady heartbeat, a slow drum that murmured beneath her ear, grounding her, connecting her to both him and the garden's vast embrace. In this quiet closeness, trust unfolded naturally, like petals opening in the golden light of dawn. Adam whispered softly, his voice barely a breath. Here, in this stillness, I feel everything perfect. The garden, you, me, woven together by something deeper than sight or sound. Eve smiled, eyes closed. It is in the waiting, in the gentle unfolding, that we find all we need. Each moment an invitation to simply be. Time seemed to stretch and flow around them, a slow river bending beneath the moon's gentle gaze. Their shared silence became a sanctuary, each breath a soft prayer of gratitude whispered into the space between stars and leaf. After a long while, night shifted seamlessly toward the cusp of dawn. A subtle change in color nudged the sky, a soft glowing wash of blues melting slowly into pastel golds. The garden began to stir awake, carrying with it a fresh wave of quiet energy, tender and new. Birdsong began, delicate as the first frost glistening on morning leaves. The light touched the edges of petals and feathers, illuminating their delicate structures with a gentle clarity. Adam and Eve rose slowly, still cradled by the garden's calm pulse. They moved as one, stepping barefoot onto the cool earth, now glistening with dew. Each footprint was a slow, deliberate imprint, a shared rhythm in the garden's unfolding cycle. Their hands found each other again, fingers laced together like soft vines climbing toward the light. The garden around them breathed in a new day, and so did they, deep and full. Eve lifted a blooming flower in soft palms, noticing how it shimmered with renewed life after the night's rest. Adam reached out, catching a falling blossom with quiet reverence, two fragile beings connected by the endless dance of growth and renewal. Without haste, they wandered deeper into the awakening garden, the air filled with the fresh zest of green leaves and the faint warmth of sun on bark. Bees began their lazy hum, gathering nectar with purposeful gentleness, reminding Adam and Eve that even the smallest workers played a part in the grand tapestry. They paused beside a stream, its water sparkling with liquid light, flowing not hurried but steady, reflecting sky and leaf in a quiet dance of clarity. Adam dipped his fingers in, feeling the cool rush of living water, an ancient song of movement and persistence. Eve watched the ripples spread, a delicate pattern of growth radiating outward. Everything here, she mused softly, reminds me to move gently through life, to cause no harm, but to encourage all things to flourish. Adam nodded, his eyes drinking in the garden's vastness. We are both guardians and companions, he replied, voice calm and sure. The garden sustains us, and in return we care for it with steady hands and quiet hearts. Together they rose and moved forward, the garden's slow rhythm now etched inside their own. They noticed the interplay of shadow and light beneath the ancient branches, how even the smallest twitch of a leaf spoke of life's patience and resilience. Birds darted through the canopy, their wings slicing the air like soft whistles. Butterflies flitted lazily, tracing unseen pathways that led from flower to flower. Each movement was unhurried yet deliberate, a gentle rhythm to follow. Eve and Adam found a sun-drenched clearing where the earth was soft and warm. They sat again on the mossy ground, leaning into each other's arms. Here, in this quiet space, between ancient growth and new beginnings, they felt a profound sense of belonging. The garden was more than a place, it was a living teacher. It whispered lessons in stillness, patience, and trust. It held them tenderly, urging them to notice the quiet miracles that slipped past unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. Eve closed her eyes, inhaling the garden's rich, loamy scent. A slow smile spread as she breathed in the depth of this sacred moment, the connection threading through soil, root, leaf, and soul. Adam's hand traced lazy circles on her back, a silent promise carried on the breath of the wind, a promise to walk this path together, in harmony with the slow unfolding of time. The sun climbed higher, casting warm patterns across their faces. Birdsong swelled into a delicate symphony, rising and falling like waves on the shore of the earth's quiet heart. As the day unfolded gently around them, Adam and Eve remained still, embracing the slow revelation that life in the garden was not just about living. It was about learning to live fully in each moment, with open hearts and steady breath. In this sacred space, time was an ally, not a burden. Growth was a dance, not a race. And love, quiet, patient, and enduring, was the soft light guiding their way. The garden held them close, a gentle living presence unfolding with them, as they stepped deeper into the slow, steady rhythm of being, rooted, present, and utterly at peace. As light softened toward the garden's gentle evening, Adam and Eve found themselves drawn to a towering tree, its bark patterned with the quiet passage of seasons, its canopy alive with whispered secrets. The branches rustled softly, stirred by a wind that seemed older than time, carrying a melody woven from the breath of the earth itself. They settled beneath its shade, the coolness wrapping around them like a tender embrace. Eve traced her fingertips along a low-hanging leaf, marveling at its intricate veins, each a subtle pathway that carried life's essence, unerring and steady. Adam watched the play of delicate shadows on her face, noticing how the fading light seemed to honor each curve and line, as if the garden itself blessed their shared quiet. In this sacred pause, they listened to the language of the wind, a symphony without words yet understood deeply by the heart. There was no rush here, no urgency to grasp or command the moment. Instead, there was a gentle unfolding, a dance of presence that invited them to be wholly aware and wholly still. Eve's thoughts lingered on the lessons the garden whispered to her through leaf and stone. It spoke of surrender, the kind that welcomed change without resistance, of harmony, the blending of differing voices into a single richer song. She felt the stirring of a gratitude so vast it filled her very core, a recognition that to live within this garden was to be part of a greater whole, fragile, resilient, eternally renewing. Adam reached for a stone beside him, smooth and warm from the day's sun. He turned it slowly in his hand, feeling its weight, its grounded certainty. To be guardian of this place was not to dominate or control, but to receive its gifts with humility, to hold its wonders tenderly, as one might cradle the pulse of a new life. He spoke softly, not to break the tranquility but to share the truth that had settled gently within him. Together they spoke of their hopes, not plans or desires bound to the future, but quiet intentions rooted in the now. They wished to be mirrors for each other's growth, reflections of patience, kindness, and gentle strength. They wished to move through this sacred space not as conquerors, but as humble students, forever open to the lessons beneath their feet and above their heads. As twilight deepened, the garden transformed once more. The colors softened into hues of deep lavender and muted gold, painting the sky with subtle fading light. A chorus of unseen creatures began their evening song, soft trills and murmurs that wrapped around Adam and Eve like a lullaby, each note weaving the fabric of peace and belonging. Hand in hand, They rose and wandered slowly toward a place where the earth curved gently into a natural resting spot, carpeted with moss and sprinkled with tiny, fragrant blooms. There they sat, hearts beating in quiet sync, feeling the pulse of the garden beneath them, the rhythm steady and unhurried. Eve leaned her head against Adam's shoulder, breathing the earthy scent that rose from the soil, rich and sweet, a reminder of life's continuous breath. Their eyes closed, they became one with the serene cadence of the night, the garden's pulse now their own. In this shared silence, a new understanding blossomed. Life, they realized, was not measured in grand feats, but in the tender moments between breaths, the delicate balance of growth and rest. Their love was a seed planted deep within this fertile ground, patient, awaiting its unfolding with quiet confidence. Stars began to twinkle softly overhead, distant fires burning in the velvet sky, each one a silent witness to the sacred vow they had nurtured here, to live gently, to love deeply, to honor the gift of each moment as it came. The garden held them as they rested, a cradle of life's endless embrace. Here in the stillness and the light, Adam and Eve understood that the greatest journey was not toward a far place or time, but inward, a slow unfolding of heart and soul, forever guided by the gentle wisdom of the earth beneath them. As darkness wrapped the garden in quiet calm, their dreams were sweet and light, carried on the breath of the night wind. Morning would come again, as it always did, and with it the continuation of their shared path, one step, one breath, one patient moment at a time. The night deepened slowly, a velvet blanket embroidered with countless stars stretching overhead. Adam and Eve lay quietly, their breaths mingling with the subtle scents of damp earth and flowering jasmine. The garden around them seemed to breathe in unison with their resting hearts, and the stillness was filled with a tender, unspoken understanding. Eve's fingers traced the delicate outline of a fern leaf beside them, marveling again at the countless patterns hidden within something so small. She thought about the cycle she now witnessed, how the garden unfolded effortlessly, day after day, through its steady rhythms. Time itself seemed softer here, less pressing, inviting patience rather than haste. Adam, watching the interplay of shadows and light on the canopy above, felt an unexpected lightness settle over him. The weight of responsibility, although real and known, was not a burden. It was a gentle task, a kind of reverence that flowed naturally from the respect both held for this place and for each other. They spoke little, instead allowing a quietness to hold space for their deepest thoughts and hopes. Eve thought about the seeds they had already planted in their hearts: hope, tenderness, curiosity. She imagined these seeds taking root beneath the soft soil of the garden's embrace. With patience, they would grow, each sprout a small miracle of life and learning. Sometimes, she whispered softly, I wonder about what lies beyond these trees. The vastness beyond the garden's edge feels both inviting and vast, like a story waiting to unfold. Adam smiled gently in the dim light. The unknown invites us to grow, he said, but it also reminds us there is always a place to return to, a home like this garden that holds us when we are weary. Eve nodded, sensing the truth wrapped in those words. Here in the stillness, they rediscovered the sacred pact between shelter and exploration. Growth required both, the courage to step outward and the safety to rest and reflect. A breeze stirred, its cool fingers brushing their skin. It carried a faint sound, the soft rustling of leaves, the distant murmur of a stream, the quiet song of a night bird. These gentle harmonies were the garden's lullabies, steady and soothing, weaving reassurance throughout the night. Adam reached over to gather a handful of smooth pebbles from the mossy earth. As his fingers sifted through them, he was reminded how small pieces, collected with care, built the foundation of something greater. Like stones in a path, they supported the journey, guiding steps with a quiet strength. They shared stories too, simple tales born from the day's discoveries. Eve spoke of a delicate butterfly that had fluttered close to her, its wings shimmering with iridescent colors she hadn't seen before. She described the way it paused, as if acknowledging her presence, before continuing its hesitant dance through the air. Adam recalled a cluster of wildflowers by the riverbank, their petals unfolding slowly in the moonlight, as though greeting the night with silent gratitude. He told her how the flowers seemed humble yet radiant, a testament to nature's gentle resilience. Listening to each other, they found joy in the small wonders that often escaped hurried notice. In this sharing, their bond deepened, anchored not only in love but in mutual reverence for the world around them. Eve's voice softened as she spoke, To live here is to learn from every leaf, every stone, every breath. The garden teaches us about stillness and motion, about acceptance and patience. In its quiet language, I hear the promise of new beginnings. Adam embraced her hand, their fingers weaving together like roots entwining beneath the soil. And it promises endless moments like this, moments when the heart feels full, simply because it is present. The stars continued their silent vigil, shimmering like distant fires gently burning in the night. Their light touched the garden in tender threads, illuminating the subtle dance of shadows and revealing hidden textures in bark and leaf. Time felt fluid, its edges softened by the depth of peace sacred to the place they now inhabited. Breathing deeply as the garden's essence seeped into her being, she felt connected to the earth beneath her, to the sky above, and most profoundly, to Adam beside her. They were woven together by the garden's gentle current, part of a larger whole that whispered of harmony and lasting grace. Adam rested his head near hers, the steady beat of her heartbeat a calming drum. In that moment, beneath the vast expanse of night, he received a clear truth, that love and life were not separate paths, but one continuous journey, nourished by patience, trust, and the willingness to grow slowly, tendrils stretching toward light. They lingered in that silent exchange, two souls open and unguarded, inviting the garden's wisdom into their core. When dawn began to hint at the horizon with a faint pink glow, the garden stirred softly. Birds greeted the morning with gentle calls, and the fresh scent of dew began to rise from the soil, carrying promises of renewal and awakening. Eve and Adam rose together, their spirits aligned with the day's new breath. They knew, as they gathered their strength and hope, that this garden, their sanctuary, offered a timeless lesson, that life in all its fullness is found in embracing the present moment with gratitude and love. With hands still joined, they stepped forward into the unfolding day, their footsteps guided by the quiet pulse of the earth beneath them, confident in the journey yet to come. The garden awaited as always, holding space for every leaf, every star, every heart, and every seed of possibility.